When you work with the big guys, it's kind of, you need to understand their organization, how they work, how they prioritize things. So you need to, first of all, understand the policy of the leader, and then you need to understand the motivation of the other people that works. And you have a lot of decision makers on the way.
Welcome to the Startup Sales Talks podcast. And today with us, we have a very special guest, my friend, Adir. He's a serial entrepreneur, sales veteran, and very exciting to have you, Adir, today here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. Finally on a podcast together after we're working for almost, I think, 2 years now together.
Quite some time. Yeah,
Exciting.
yeah,
Exciting. I thought that
exciting.
you will come to my podcast first,
Yeah,
but here we go. So
yeah. So let's talk about your personal background and your journey. I think you managed to had a lot of different experiences. So there, maybe you can take it from here and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what kind of businesses you've been involved in.
yeah, sure. So second time entrepreneur. My current company, RAINMAKERS, is a revenue operation system, which basically means that we help early stage B2B software as a service company to implement their flywheel model, which means to do some lead generation, deal closing, and customer success. We're basically a methodology that we are coming in with our mentors, and we implement this methodology in about 3 months time. So this is what I do today. Prior, I've been a VP of sales of two company, Litico in the e-sign solution, tackling Europe and North America, plethora of businesses from Fortune 20 all the way down to moms and pops. Market Beyond that was recently acquired in the data industry with big e-commerce customers such as Facebook Marketplace and eBay. And prior to that, I have established my own company, took it from an idea to a global company with offices all over the world in Tokyo, Shanghai, Berlin, in Mexico, and even in Bentonville, Arkansas, where our biggest customer was Walmart. We worked with the biggest ones: Walmart, Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, Deutsche Telekom. In the Far East, it was DNP, Ping An. So this is what I did for about 10 years of my life. And I have kind of a multidisciplinary background. I learned computer science and economy. I've been a CTO for a short period of time of my life. I sold B2G, business to government, in Africa and in Europe. So kind of coming from all those area, and this is how I came about to form Rainmakers, that I do it today. And I'm kind of sitting in the line between those two community of revenue professionals, sales, marketing, sales development, customer success, and entrepreneurs, the one that sits in the board, the entrepreneurs and the investors.
Okay, that's actually a very rare case when the same guy used to be a CTO and the sales leader. Right, this is a very rare combination. I can admit. In talking about closing those big boys, Walmart, Deutsche Telekom, Coca-Cola, what are key insights and learnings you got from closing these guys?
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, the question is what size of company are you? I think that back then we were small enough and they were big enough, which means that we were an early stage startup. We already had some traction. Clearly, we raised a couple of millions of dollars. We had a good ARR, but we were not big, so we could inspire at that stage. All of those companies, I reached out to their CEOs. So if it's Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart, or Mukhtar Kent, that was back then the president of Coca-Cola Worldwide, or Tim from Deutsche Telekom, and I could inspire, the kind of the high level people. So they had faith with us, but this is not enough, because once you inspire, for example, the CEO of Walmart, he introducing you to his C level, and then this C level introduce you to the AVP, EVP, VP, SVP, director, managers. You go 8 floors down to the people that actually do the work, and this needs to take a different approach. So when you work with the big guys, it's kind of, you need to understand their organization, how they work, how they prioritize things. So you need to first of all understand the policy of the leader, and then you need to understand the motivation of the other people that works. And you have a lot of decision makers on the way. If I remember correctly, eBay is like, for every contract that we did, we need 5 VPs that will sign the contract, right? So you actually need to convince 5 people. So you really need to understand the how those companies work. And it started in day one. When you approach those companies, it's never kind of just send your SDRs to bring you a lead. It's always kind of, you need to come to the organization from all angles and directions. So you want to use a mixture of some cold outreach and warm intros, and might be things that are more sophisticated than that. For example, to create a podcast that interviews the C levels that you want to reach out in the company, and started to kind of gain some kind of brand recognition there. There are far more sophisticated way than those areas, but the whole idea is that you need to touch the organization in many, 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 many points, and be ready for a long sales cycles. Closing deals with big enterprise takes anywhere between 3 months if you're really lucky and you have some foot in the door that you can create, like a proof of concept, paid one of some sort. But typically it will take you about 12 to 18 months to close those ones. So a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of planning when you go out doing that. So if you're a small company, be ready to be completely focused on those ones with your whole team. And if you're leading big teams, it's better to work in pods where you have a marketing representative, when you have
Mm-hmm.
sales development representative, when you have account executive on the team. And as a group, we go after some strategic accounts, more account-based approach. And then this is how we able to penetrate and actually move our deals inside the organization forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I can agree. We just signed a contract actually yesterday after 6 months with public French company that
Rats.
provides some kind of digitalization. I'm not getting into details, but I couldn't relate more actually, dear, what you just
Amazing.
told. We are lucky because we had an internal champion, and she did a lot of work. Of course, it was like four different calls with the like decision makers and everything, but like it's strong internal champion that really is a fan of yours can do wonders actually in that organization.
Of
That
course.
works well for us.
Of course.
Uh,
There is always the saying of big champion, big deal, no champion, no deal. And it's always works like this. Definitely when you look at your deals, make sure you have a champion there, specifically in the big ones.
yeah, and make it easy for a champion. Give material, give business case, give case studies. Make it easy for them to sell. Uh,
100%.
and there's a tools actually that can make it easier. I don't remember actually the names. Maybe we'll include in the description, but there are some solutions for that as
Yeah,
well.
I can, recently I started to use Aligned, which
Ah, you
created
know.
a virtual
Mm-hmm.
room.
Yeah.
I like it because I can manipulate all of
Mm-hmm.
them, all of the kind of the parts of it. So first of all, big
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Align on the great work they're doing. I can have like an intro page where kind of I give an intro about what we do, and then I can provide there all the analysis that I took from the company. Another one in the third page, I can put all the video recordings of all the meetings that we did. I can put in another one all the documents. So we have a virtual room because there's so much information going back and forth in those type of deals. And there are so many stakeholders on both sides, because people always think, okay, we have stakeholders on the customer side, but they forget about the stakeholders on the provider side. We also have a lot, right? You want your so you're the account executive, then you bring your sales engineer. This is another person. You bring your product person, probably because they want to do some changes to your product roadmap. You bring your CEO at some point to have or other C level to have a kind of executive sponsorship there, right? And then there can be a plethora of other people, VP of sales, whatever. You have the marketing people that work on that, and everybody needs to be synced. And you, as the account executive that manage it and run it, to have this kind of virtual space to sync everybody, it is so important. So yeah, definitely this type of tools, and there are a bunch out there, are super important to make deals successful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a great tip right here. And let's talk a bit about SCREEMO, right? The company that you built. You know, you made a global player, and I know one thing that you did from the very beginning. You started to create them playbooks and documentation from the get-go, and co-founder has been mad at you that you've been spending time at like documenting things, but down the line, it proved as to be a good thing that you did, right? That kept the company in the structure, and then you'll be able to scale. What other things you did in SCREEMO, looking back, that were maybe right things, and on the other side, maybe not so good things that you would change, let's say.
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, I think I always big fan of the begin with an end in mind, which means that, and in startup it's happening so fast. So even if you are three founders now working from a garage, work as you are a big company that needs to be ready for scale, because this day hopefully it will come, but once it will come kind of as a surprise. You're suddenly crossing a milestone, you get the money, and then the sand clock turning again and give you another very short time to get the results, and you don't have the time to do this kind of reorganization right now. So even if you're three people, behave like you are in a big company. um, and what do I mean by that? Everything should be organized, everything should be documented. Why? Because everything that you do right now, when you start as a founder, you actually start at some point, you start to delegate whatever you do. So document everything that you do, so you can onboard, train, and onboard quickly people that will replace you. If you come with this state of mind and you understand that you are sitting in seats that someone else is going to sit there really soon, in a couple of months time, this will enable you to scale quickly. The second thing that I think helped us in this case was using kind of the power of the community in networking. I've mentioned, like, I close deals with the biggest CEOs in the world. As a startup, as a young startup of 20, 30 people, I sat to the table with the CEO of the biggest company in the world. How come? Because of network. I found a way to reach out to a big CEO. He sat with another big CEO and shared with him his experience about talking to me. And then this guy brought another one and another one and another one. So networking is really important, specifically in the early days of a startup. It it helps us with two things. First of all, to reach out to people that we want to reach out to. The second thing is creating rapport before even you arrive, because if the person that introduced you is reliable and have a good reputation, this sticks with you. So this really, really helped us to do so. I think the challenges and things that we've learned on the way. I always share it with my with Rainmakers companies about focus. Be super focused. Go to a specific ideal customer profile. Go with a specific use case, and go to a specific territory and geography, and try to stick with it as much as possible. And I think that for us, the challenge came when, although we were focused, when we started to work with those global companies such as Coca-Cola, that has basically uh, they have companies all over the world. I think that except of Cuba and North Korea, they have
Probably.
in all
Yeah.
globally, and maybe in Cuba they already have now. So I'm not sure. And this can take you to a different direction, and this spreads you really really thin. And as an early stage company, this is becoming a real challenge. So, assuming that your technology can cope with that, you still need to have teams that support different side of the world. Super hard. You still need to have people that understand different cultures to work with Asia Pacific by itself. So many different cultures. I think that although I came from the western side of the world and worked in South America, North America, Africa, and Europe, such a different cultures, I was still overwhelmed how fragmented is Asia Pacific, and the different traits that I need to take in order to really be able to connect in each country to the business side. So I think that one thing for me is really maintain focus, also geography focus, size of companies. I think that this gave us a lot of, or presented us with a lot of challenges throughout the company's life. I don't know if I would be correct to say that we should have like maybe narrowing the level of geography that we reached out to, because maybe the big one would not work with us in this case. But I definitely say that it's a consideration that founders and revenue leaders, doesn't matter if you are in sales development, in sales, in customer success, in marketing, really consider what the meaning of reaching out to multiple geographies at the same times, and see that you have the resources, the time, and the goals that you set to yourself make sense with that regard if you reaching out to multiple geographies.
Actually, very unique thing that you did, Adir, when you went with SCREEMO, you went to China market.
Yeah.
How you did that? Because it's I didn't hear any success stories, at least in this podcast, with that particular market. How you entered that market in the first place?
Yeah, ignorance is bliss. I was in bliss. Sorry, ignorance is bliss. I was in a conference of Microsoft. They invited me to a conference in London, and then I met some senior executives from Ping An. And it was the early days of the company. Worked in the States back then, and they shared with me that they have a lot of spots in China, and they are looking for a solution like SCREEMO. SCREEMO was creating a platform that enables interaction between mobile and digital screens in retail stores, banks, etc. Um, and they were very enthusiastic about it. Back then, I think it was 2015. In 2015, only 50% of the population in the Western world had smartphones, which was the completely different situation in mainland China, where the majority already had like smartphones. So it was like a very obvious to us to go to this market from product perspective. And I said, sure, we can do that. And I think my team was, the way that we structured our technology enable us to really jump from geography to geography really, really fast. One of this was one of the key advantage of our technology back then. And I said, okay, China, no problem. Yet another country. Little did I know that China is surrounded by a firewall, and it's basically the moon. They have their own Google, they have their own Facebook, they have their own everything. And if you want to work in China, you basically need to build your product ground up all over again in China. Um, so after a quick Zoom negotiation, we signed the deal. I went to my CTO, excited, and told him, "Yes, I signed a huge deal in China." By the way, another good advice that I received back then. We didn't know if we want to go or not, and I asked one of our revenue leader that I appreciate his opinion. How do you close a deal that you're not sure that you really want and can actually affect your company significantly? So he said, "Listen, you take an arbitrary number between 1 and 9, add a lot of zero behind, and cover them in a paper. Now you start to expose the zeros, and once you laugh really, really hard, this is the number that you present in your offer." We did it, and they signed the deal. So it was a huge deal for us. And clearly, my CTO was really not happy about it because he really quickly figured out that, okay, what he built in 3 years, he needs to build now in a month time. So I did what I knew how to do from the time that I worked in Africa. If you want things to really happen, you need to go all in. So we took a floor in an hotel and we took the penthouse at the end of in Shanghai. We took the penthouse in the end of the corridor. We turned it into a big office. And I said to all the people in the company, "Listen, say bye to your families for a month. You're going to China to build SCREEMO China." And this is exactly what we did. I took the whole team for 1 month. We sat in this hotel. We turned it into our office, and we built SCREEMO in 1 month and deliver on time on this thing. So it was making the impossible. And this is how I found myself in China. And as luck keep on to present himself, I went down on a walk on the street in Shanghai, then encounter a good friend of mine from my childhood that actually grew up in my house, but then left to Russia and later on to China. And he shared with me that now he's a CEO of a company in China. And I told him, "Great, I want you to become the GM of SCREEMO China and work for me." And this is how I came about to have like technology that works there, a CEO that runs this mainland China, because it's like a different world of itself. And this was our story with China, and this actually gave us quite a few good years while the west side of the world start to kind of engage more with smartphone technology.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you think that startup could have a shot, let's say from the Western Hemisphere, to do something in China, like for example, at the moment, or you would say, guys, just it's not worth it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the climate right now is aiming toward that, but I will say this: decide on side of the world that you're going after, and if it makes sense, go all in. We know here in Israel, we know companies that made great success in Asia Pacific. Tabula is one of them. I actually had I had an interview back then with the CRO, Ran Book, the CRO of Tabula that back then lived in Thailand, and they generate more revenue in the Asia Pacific than they generate in the United States, while all of their investors and the majority of the company were Western based. So if it makes sense, yes, go all in. But clearly, the limitations are bigger. I think that in today's political climate, you actually can encounter investors that won't put money in your company because of that, on both sides, by the way. So this is why I think we are more in the world today. You should kind of need to go all in on a specific site. Later down the road, when you're a big company, you can, you can have like a daughter company that will provide to some other side of the world. But when you're small, take your side and go all in.
Okay, okay, great stuff right here. And let's jump to nowadays, right? About the rainmakers. Your sales is your passion. You mentioned that a few times. This is something that you love, and out of love, the rainmakers probably were born, right?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate a bit more? As like what inspired you to create the rainmakers, and where the company is going at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So clearly, I'm as I mentioned, I lived on the line between being a founder and being a salesperson. And back then, I started to become a mentor in different types of program and met a lot of entrepreneurs. And coming from the sales world, in the sales world, we have a lot of methodology, amazing methodology. And if you know me for a while, and if you understand Hebrew and can listen to my podcast, you know that I'm a freak of sales methodology. But all the sales methodologies are perfect for the after product market fit stage, where the majority of the startups, the early stage, they are in the pre-product market fit stage. Everybody's speaking about the hockey stick, the triple double approach, that kind of creating the hockey stick. But the triple double approach start in 1 or 2 million ARR, which means that it's after the product market fit. And what's
Mm-hmm.
happening beforehand, it's actually we have a situation where we are in a company that have small team. Typically sales will be founder led, which means that even if we have a team, it will be founder led. The team will lack of different competencies. It doesn't matter in which area of the revenue organization, and no methodology that can fit to the level of pivots, to the ratio of the pivots that you're about to do. The pivot can happen once a month even, because pivot doesn't mean that you pivot your whole product. Pivot could be I'm just changing the way that I'm verbalizing my value proposition. It could be a new feature that I'm now putting as kind of the key feature that I'm pushing forward. It could be a lot of stuff. And the majority of sales methodology breaks when it comes to a lot of changes, working in small teams that do like one person do a lot of stuff, or that demands a lean operation. We don't have a lot of time before the meeting, after the meeting. We don't have a lot of time to kind of drill deep into the person that we are speaking with, or his company. So Rainmakers comes to compensate on that and to create an alternative for the early stage company that struggle with the things that I just mentioned. So this is why after my period with SCREEMO, I decided to kind of take a role as to go back to the sales seat and start to experiment with the same methodology that I developed in SCREEMO. And later on, I jumped ship from those companies that I worked as a sales leader, and started to do that with Rainmakers companies. So we do it for the last 2 years with leading startup companies in Israel, that belongs to a portfolio of leading VCs. We did it under the radar, and these days we're actually starting to expose ourselves and go kind of more of a publicly aware, and open up to more companies that can join the program and implement the Rainmakers methodologies.
Great. And what kind of must-have components should be that early stage startup for the revenue generation? What are the key steps to nail down, let's say?
Yeah, so let's divide the stages of the company into four. We have ideation validation,
Mm-hmm.
This is the first stage when we're kind of thinking an idea and just reaching out to people from the industry and ask them what they think about it. So for that, founders will be just fine. Then we have design partners stage. Again, just founder reaching out to design partners. But in this stage, I already will add some notion of mentorship, of someone that can understand how to navigate the world of the customers and doing sales. The leads will be generated probably from network based, but at the end of the day, for our customers, they see ourselves as they see the startup as a vendor. They don't care if it's this vendor in the design stage, design partner stage,
Mm-hmm.
or first paying customer. They just see it as a vendor. So you need to have this kind of mentor that will walk you through how to go about doing that. Then we have the go-to-market validation. In this stage, you want to start and bring your functions. So in sales development, we will start to do some sales development. Not only the network based will not be enough. So reaching out to companies like yours, or to bring an in-house person, it doesn't matter. But the most important thing in this stage is that the founders are still steering this kind of vehicle, because there is actually a very strong correlation between the involvement of the founders and the business success of the company. Um, you can refer your audience to the Harvard Business Review research from, I think, like 20 years ago, called the
Mm-hmm.
Sales Learning Curve, which prove this correlation. So at this stage, the go-to-market validation is super important. Founders still involved. Hopefully, they are the one that doing the sales, the deal closing. They have some sales development that helps them to generate leads. And as they start to close their first deals, they need to bring customer success. This is something that sometimes is people like skip it and oversee it, and then you get churn after a couple of months. So once you get your first customers at the door, bring junior customer success, but with mentorship that can provide him with the right methodologies for the customer success. So I think that if to look at this stage, sales development that can provide you with leads, but you're the one that managing it, close the deal by yourself, and have a junior customer success with some mentorship that can help him to do the right thing in processes, because customer success is all about the processes. So this is I think the must have. From this point on, once you cross this and you have the tens of customers, start to build an organization. Bring someone to head the sales development, bring someone to lead the sales, and bring someone to lead the customer success and build your team.
To your point, actually, yeah, you go to the market as an entrepreneur, as a founder. You understand how they lead things, but most importantly, you gather the intelligence from those conversations about what they think about their product, right? So, and as a founder, this is a crucial information, raw, unfiltered information about their pain points. I mean, this is just a must. And
Exactly.
and what I see, constantly is that nobody wants to do top funnel stuff. Nobody. I mean, who wants to do that these days, right? Especially founders. So,
Yeah.
but you need to kind of swallow that pillow and to do it just for the few things, intelligence and lead. So couldn't agree more, actually.
Yeah.
um, anyway, and pulling those all things together, right? Customer success, marketing, sales development, sales execution. How to not lose your head? I mean, it's like when you handle only sales development or sales execution is already enough. So many things, right? How to prioritize or how to balance all these things together, like, because you can get lost very, very easy, and you can be all over the place, so maybe you have any tips right here, how to manage that.
Yeah. Plan. Just a
Mm-hmm.
simple, sometimes a simple sales plan. This is something that actually a practice that I do when I in my sales process, when I meet a new potential startup that wants to work with Rainmakers. So typically, what I do, I started with asking him, what's your goals for this year, for next year? Can you break it down by quarters? Just tell me revenue and customers. That's it. And then average deal size and sales cycles. This Simple things actually helps me to build a naive plan for the next 18 to 24 months and help me to focus on what's important. Because I know that an account executive can meet about 4 companies a day. I know that an SDR depends on the market, and the stage of the company can generate anywhere between 8 to 14 meetings a month. And then I can actually put things together. And sometimes, by the way, it's even before that. I'm asking I know how much leads I can generate from my network. So what I can do very simply, I can put a plan in place that say how many leads I need to create each month, how many people I need to handle those leads. I will give an example. If I'm generating 10 leads per month and I have a sales cycle of 1 month or 2 months, okay, you know what, 2 months, I know that typically a customer will meet me every 2 weeks, right? So I'm generating 10 leads a month. It means that in 2 months, I will have like 20 companies that I'm speaking with. Each one has meeting every 2 weeks, right? So we are two meetings a month, right? So we got to 20 customer, 2 meeting a month, meaning we have 40 meetings, and I will divide it by 21 days of work, right? So I get to a level of 1 meeting a day. I don't need an AE. I can do it as a founder. AE full time will be able to cope with 4 meetings a day. I can cope with one. I can cope with even two as a founder. So this is how I plan, and this is how I understand where I need to bring my next person. If I don't get to the 10 meetings a month, I know, okay, heads up, I need to generate pipeline. This should be my focus for the next one. So it's a simple tool to have this very naive table. And as I said, I do it in the first few minutes of the first time that I meet a company. So certainly a founder of a company, take 1 hour of your time, build this table. This will be a very good guidance to understand if you are on track or off track of what you do. No CRM, nothing complicated, just a simple Excel sheet.
Right, and the right goals are solving, half of the problems already, like reasonable goals.
Exactly. Exactly.
Great. So, what about like a real world example? So we work with multiple companies together. Maybe we can take, let's say, any SaaS company, right, that worked with Rainmakers, right? They implemented the methodology, right, and they had a great output. Maybe you can elaborate on
Yeah.
any case on the top of your mind.
Yeah. So I actually have one, but we cannot expose the name because they are in a delicate situation, but the story is overwhelming. They reach out to Rainmakers after 3 years of failing to really reach out the market and get to a business success. They've been after yet another pivot, and as they arrived, we started to put together the glue that sticks this whole revenue organization. It's the go-to-market strategy, focusing on the right ICP, understanding the persona, translating features into value proposition, putting the right messaging, aligning on pricing that creates alignment between the value of the customer and the pricing and the price raise on our side, and to have a planning in place. And then we started to execute really fast on generating leads. Some was coming from you guys, and iterating on that. So we iterated really fast. Some of the features of Rainmakers is the ability to iterate fast, like learn fast and iterate fast. And after an initial fine tuning, everything started to work, and we started to generate leads. So we went to the second stage of the program. Now let's see how we close those leads, and we build the right frameworks of like what to do in the initial meetings and what to do, how to do the demo and how to do the follow-ups, and then how to do the deal closing framework, and started to close customers. And then we went to the third stage. We started to put customer success processes in place, and we're able to not only to maintain those customer and prevent churn, we started to see renewals and expansions coming together with this company. So now you say, wow, this is the dream. Everything is great, but not exactly. Then crisis hit their investor lost their money, and they were already kind of out of air because they burned their money throughout. Although they raised millions of dollars, they burned their money through the last 3 years prior that they didn't manage to get to results. So finally, when they got to results, their investor ran out of money, and they ran out of money, and it was very hard in the market to find investors. So everything collapsed, and this is where I think come the phrase of sales cures all, because they implemented so well their direct approach, where they do the sale, we do the customer success. We were able to build the last kit of Rainmakers, which is the partnership kit, and delegate the sales, the revenue organization into channels, and it's also feed their industry. And this is how they actually not only surviving today, but actually thriving, not based on funding that they need. And this will actually help them to cross through the crisis, because they are generating money now because they build such a good direct machine. And just to set expectation, you cannot start with channels from day one. You need to have a solid machine of direct sales generation, and only then you can delegate it into channels. And channels, it's a whole world by itself. So I think it's a good story. Two things, it has a couple of morals into it. First of all, start early. Don't wait to fail through 3 years. Start early, work in an organized way. If you don't work with Rainmakers, make sure you work with someone else, with some mentor, with someone. But implement your revenue organization, build it as early as possible. So this is one thing. The second thing, if you build it correctly, everything is possible. You can actually do things like channels when times is right. And this is really inspiring for me, and always looking at this company, how they are surviving through thick and thin, and using sales. It is amazing.
Yeah, and then I know that CEO is actually doing a podcast as well, closing some deals out of the podcast. So that's
Yeah.
they're combining everything what they can. So I love it about them. Anyway, Adir, I think that's a great story to end the podcast with. Thanks for your time. For the audience, how people can reach out to you.
So LinkedIn will be best case. I'm highly available on social network, Adir Zimerman. Just reach out with a nice message, and I will make sure that I will react.
Great. Okay. Thank you, buddy. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.